Hi, this is Gurasi Singh, and you're listening to my Thick Accent podcast. Before we get into today's episode, I want to discuss a few housekeeping items. First, if you haven't subscribed to the podcast yet, please consider doing it. Podcast production is not easy, it requires a lot of time and effort, and we can continue only and only with your support. And second, if you would like to share your immigrant story or know somebody I should invite next to the podcast, please reach out to us at hello@mythickaccent.com, or you can also DM us on Instagram. The handle is mythickaccent. Now let's get to the episode. Dear international students, I feel you. I know how hard it is to focus on getting the job in your respective industries when the PR, the permanent residency clock, is ticking. And it's nerve wracking if you are the one from my category whose focus was to get the job in the field I have studied rather than doing any job without even trying to get the desired one. Because the majority around you is choosing to do the latter and you think you are on the wrong path. But guess what? Neither was I, nor are you. And my guest today is here to the rescue. She came to Canada in 2015 to study accounting at George Brown College and is now a senior consultant at KPMG. She's also the co founder and chief operating officer of Canada's first job search platform for international students called Is Empower by bridging a gap between the job seekers and employers. Let's hear more from her about Is Empower and how she can help you achieve your goals within the ticking PR clock hours. Please welcome Ramneet Brar.
Thank you for having me, Gracis. I'm very excited to be here today and listening to your intro and taking back to international students and wanting to get jobs, in the industries you want. It's like it's everything I want to talk about. So I love the introduction and super excited for this.
Awesome. Likewise, I'm excited as well. So, Ramneet, whatever we become in our later years of life, our childhood does play a major role in that. And it can go either ways. So, before we jump into talking about KPMG, Is Empower, and the life in Canada, I wanted to tell us how was it like growing up in Chandigarh? You are from Chandigarh. Tell us how was it like growing up there and what were you doing before you moved?
Hmm. I think this is such a great question. Honestly, I am a fan of talking about people's childhood because I think it can tell so much about, where you come from and why you do a certain things a certain way. And I think nobody has ever asked me this question, so I'm very excited to answer this. My childhood was really great, honestly. I grew up in Chandigarh, as you said. I was born and brought up there, never left. So we've been in the same sector all my life technically. My father's from army background, so he used to work in army, and then he took an early retirement to go work in oil and gas industry. So I have like a semi army background, you can say. All my extended maternal family has been in the army, so army was a big part of growing up. I was born in an army hospital, going back to the canteen and visiting all my uncles in their units and going for the dinners. So that was a big part, and just army in general was a big part of growing up. And then in my home, I come from a super nuclear family. It was just me, my mom, and my sister. My dad used to travel a lot for work, so he would be always in and out of Chandigarh. So we grew up in the same place. I think my parents always were very particular that they wanted the kids to be in the same place, in the same high school. Like they didn't want it to uproot us. And if somebody listening is from army family knows, you're technically changing locations every other year. So they didn't want it to do that, and that's why they took the decision to leave the army and settle their roots in the sector I grew up in, which was 41, and that's where Shivalik was, where I went to high school. So I actually did kindergarten to grade 12 from the same school, never left. So I think and same with my sister. So we kind of had this like like another family at Shivalik. All the teachers teachers knew us, the principal knew us, they knew my parents. My sister was also a very bright kid, so she was always participating in things. And then, I came along, and I was very similar. So we were both always, you can say in highlight in a way. So we were, it was very nice. I think the school being so close to the home, you could just walk around there. And because I was always there, I had friends who I was together since childhood, and then, classmates I had been studying together since childhood. So it's just a lot of familiar feelings, and like known territory. I never had this feeling in high school of like, oh, I don't know where this is heading, and there's so many, like I'm so new to this. Like it always felt like a second home. And the teachers were great, and I was one of those, what do you call, like a student who wants to do everything. I used to love studying. My parents, actually, it's very surprising for Indian parents, were never really pressurizing enough, or maybe they didn't have to be, because we were just studious by nature. But I just loved doing everything. I started participating in extracurriculars ever since kindergarten. So I would be on the stage dancing, drama school, art, singing, sports, everything. I was just always ready to participate, whichever whatever was going on. And then same was with my parents; they were very supportive of us, just spreading out and doing those avenues. So I think it was great until we kind of got into high school, and you that's when you have to pick what do you want to do. And the expectation for a scholar in India is to go either do engineering or medical school. That was the only two options, and science was never my strongest suit. So I just knew I couldn't do it. And thankfully, again, my parents didn't force me to. And that's how I ended up taking commerce. And I think everything that happened after that, the career I was able to make out of it, the amount of fun I had studying commerce, and the pure match that happened with the subjects, be it accounting, be it economics. I just loved those subjects so much that I didn't ever feel like, oh, I have to study for an exam, or why am I doing this. It was always so like, oh, I want to learn more, and I want to become the best at this subject. And by the time my boards came, I had no pressure, because I just loved everything I was studying. And I was like, oh, this is going to be so easy. I'm just going to nail this exam, and I know I will, because I'm prepared for it. So I think that, in what when I look at it from a bigger picture perspective, I think it's so rare, because so many of my classmates that were around me, or so many of my friends who took either non-medical or medical under the pressure of their parents, they were struggling so much. Even my sister, she took non-medical, and she was struggling so much when she was in her grade 11 and 12, versus the experience I had was just so different. And I think that's when I always think back of high school. It's just such fond memories, because I never had to do something I wasn't interested in, and I never had to pursue a subject, or an activity, just because the teacher says so or the parent says so. Everything was designed, or everybody was accepting of just letting me do things that I want to do. And maybe, yeah, that's a bit of a privilege, because I the things I was interested in were under the scholar category. And there wasn't like I was like, oh, I'm gonna drop out and open a band, which now is much more acceptable than it was 15 years ago. So yeah, that was my experience. Honestly, childhood was just great, being around the same place, and just I was I think I was very connected, and I was very loved as a kid, and everybody was always appreciating. And I think the thing that I guess that made me not ready for was stepping outside of this tiny world. And I was always, just because it was the same sector, same school, the same friends, familiar teachers, it was all familiar territory. So maybe in a way it made me too comfortable being recognized, and that everybody knows what I bring to the table. I never really had to prove, or what's the right word for it, I never really had to yeah, like prove. I think the prove's the right word. I've never really had to prove somebody what I'm capable of. I could just go to whichever professor or teacher and being like, I want to do this, and they would be like, yeah, okay, we know you can do this.
And you did bag the first position in your 12th grade, right?
I did.
As per my research, you got like around 95.8%. That's a lot.
You did your research, correct. Oh my god, yes, 95.8. Yeah, that was I was the topper of the commerce kids. Actually not just commerce, even the non-med kids like throughout. And even on our city level, I think I was fourth or fifth, I forget now. So it was, yeah, I think that does really help when you are, I think our Indian education system is bit flawed that way, that if you are a great student, you get away with a lot. And and teachers really treat you very well, versus if you are not, any of those standard things they want you to be, which were pretty much all of my friends. If you would see me in high school just around, nobody could actually guess that I was that, um, you know the nerd and the padaku, as they say it, and the teacher's favorite, because I was just so free, because I know nobody would say anything to me, versus my friends who were probably not that academically gifted, they were always under scrutiny for every single thing. So I think that really does help. But then, I mean, what can I do about it? That's just what it was. So yeah, childhood was great. It was very nice. And sometimes I wish I can go and relive that, because it was much easier as compared to what it is now.
Wow. I think it just gave me a nostalgia. It has reminded me of my high school time right now. And yes, you were a part of your school council, you were into all extracurricular, you were always ready whenever given an opportunity to address an audience, and always an overachiever. And also, would you say that the discipline that came from that was instilled by the army family that you belonged to, how much do you think that discipline has helped you in your current years?
Yeah, discipline and hard work and grit. I think that's some these three values that have been instilled in me because of the army family, yes, and but
Hmm.
just the nature of how my parents are. Both my parents are very disciplined and very hardworking. Like my dad has. He was born in a very well-off
Mhm.
family and lost all of it when he was merely 17. So he's built himself back again from nothing. And that takes hard work and that takes grit, and it doesn't happen overnight. It's decades
Absolutely.
long of a process. But you can keep going, and you can still have your eyes on the prize and still not compromise in what you think you deserve, even outside of all of that. So yeah, if to give a bigger context, I don't really come from a super rich privileged family. Like we have a one income household, and I was always taught growing up the value of money and the value of saving, and just the difference between necessities and luxuries. So my parents had always been very clear of you get all the things in the means of you having a good education, you getting things that you need to study well, if it's tuition you need, or you need to get some material for a school program. Uh, there were no
Mhm.
questions asked there. Like they wouldn't cheap out on there. But then other things where they're just good to haves and luxuries, like having 30 different outfits or things like that. That's not something that was given to us. I couldn't just go and being like, I need this. Or I don't even remember if I've ever made a demand outside of my schoolwork to my parents of like, oh, buy me a watch or buy me
Mhm.
a bike. It just wasn't a thing in our household. It was like, you get what you think is correct at that point, and then that's it. So the hard work and the grit, I've seen my parents doing that growing up. Every single thing they've done it themselves. They never really asked for anybody's help. My mom was running our house by herself, because my dad was out working. So I've seen her being so mindful about each and every rupee where that goes, and budgeting and saving and helping us be where we are. If she didn't do that, we wouldn't have been able to get education abroad, or I wouldn't have been able to study in a private school. So all these decisions they've made over the time led to us where we are. So I think that's a great example for us to now see. Every time I'm here now, from the moment I've moved here, I knew there was no option to. There's no option of going back. There's no option of failing. The only option is to succeed, and the only option is to keep going. And of course, I want big things for myself, so I have that determination too to keep going. But then I think it's just the example I see around of like what long term dedication and success, and just focus can do to you, and everything we've had in our life is because of that. And I know I can continue to do that, and I'll be able to reap those fruits in a few decades. So it's not a short game. It's not let's become a millionaire by 30. It's a very, life is very long, and needs to be having intentional efforts being put towards that every single week, every single month, every single year. It might not be the same amount of efforts. You can change that, and you can always take a break to enjoy your life and value people that are around you and
Mhm.
spend time with them. But then you can expect to just sit and have opportunities thrown on your lap. I think that's one thing I've registered as a kid, that nothing comes free and nothing comes easy. And if I can continue to work, it'll keep coming to me. But the day I stop putting in that work, or stop being good at it, it will not come to me, and it'll go to somebody else who deserves it better than me. So I think that is one thing that army teaches you, is that you need to be dedicated to the message, to the unit, to the community, to your goal, and you just keep going for it. And you might not see the results, because if, let's say, in army, there's not a war happening every single week.
Yeah.
But you still do your drills, you still do your practice, you still do your gun test. It happens just in case it arrives. And that's the same in life. It's not going to be fireworks and success and results every single week. It's going to be once in a year, 2 year kind of thing. But then you still got to be prepared. You still got to keep working. So yeah, definitely army teaches you that. And my parents have been living examples of everything they preach, so it becomes easier to accept it, because I've seen them doing it. So I always, you lead by example, and they've done it very well for us.
100%. That consistency, being persistent, is really, really essential to achieve your goals in your life for sure. And yes, you said that there are no free lunches you can get. Um, Yes, and I think all this upbringing, Ramneet, definitely reflects in the work you do and all the accolades that you have achieved so far. So that's awesome. So, yes, the high school got over. You decided to move abroad, move to Canada. So, tell me, how was your first day when you landed? And if I'm not wrong, of course, your sister was here to welcome you. So, what was going on in your mind and how was your first day?
Oh man, I vividly remember my first day actually. So I landed at very late in the evening. So it was probably around 10:30 in the night. So we were just driving back, and of course, I was hungry, so we stopped at this burger joint because that was the only thing that was open at that time. And my sister was living at Brampton at that point. So actually, the first thing I remember is driving out of the airport and going towards Brampton and looking around, and I'm like, this is Canada. I was expecting CN Tower and those high rises, because my sister used to live in downtown before she moved, and she actually moved to Brampton 1 month before I moved to Canada. So I had only seen her life in downtown, and that's what I thought Canada was. So when we were driving back towards Brampton, and I just see this highway, and I see no lights, there's no buildings, it's just, from as far as I can see, it's just highway and some lights. Like, that's all I could see. And I was like, oh wow, this looks so deserted. And it's almost midnight by the time we got home. So you can only imagine Brampton at midnight is ghost town. There's nobody out there. Like, there's no shops that are open. So I was just very, I guess, honestly, very disappointed in a way that, oh my God, is this it? Like, this is where I've come. But then, it's still, it's still Canada, and you're still, you're outside of now your cocoon, as they say, and you're free and you're independent.
Yeah.
So I just came home and I slept, and my sister told me, hey, I gotta go to work tomorrow. Again, very classic Canadian thing. She's like, I gotta go to work tomorrow, so when you wake up, I wouldn't be here. I just want to let you know. But then, she connected me with Wi-Fi and everything. So she's like, you know where to reach me. And I remember waking up the next day and showering and everything, and I'm hungry, and I've never made my breakfast in my life. So I was like, okay, like, gotta make breakfast now. And I'm starting making my breakfast, and I'm in this, we used to live in basement at that point. I'm in this basement apartment. I can't see anything outside. I don't know if it's day or night. My according to India it was night, but I was up, and because I slept all night, so I have no clue where I am. It's like you're in this time capsule, right? You're in this closed two-bedroom basement where there is no windows, and now all of a sudden this is life. There is no, as if there's no going back. There's no mom coming to rescue you. There is
Yeah.
nobody I can give a call and being like, can you come and help me? This is it. So I think I just remember being so like, oh man, I don't think I signed up. Like, I don't think I was ready for what I've signed up. Honestly, before coming to Canada, there was no thought into what my life would be. It was all about, okay, there's no time. Like, I graduated in March from high school, and I came here in August. So you can imagine it was only, what, 4 months.
Hmm.
And within those 4 months, you're doing your IELTS, you're doing your visa, you're shopping.
Yeah.
So there's no time to think what life would be. So I only thought about it when I was making that breakfast. I made some eggs and something, and I ate. And after that, I'm just like, yeah, now what? So I watched some TV, kept waiting and waiting and waiting for my sister to come back, and she came back at night. So I was alone in that basement all day. I couldn't really go because I didn't even know how to go outside. I'm like, this is a basement apartment. I remember we came in through a garage, so like, how do I go out? How do I come back in? So I couldn't even leave. So literally, I was just there. I'm waiting for them to come back. And when they came back, we made dinner. And literally within a week, I started working. Because my sister's like, what you going to do sitting in this basement? My school was starting. So within a week, I started working, and my college started too. So then I think, once I started stepping out, it became a bit better. But for the first 1 week, I was literally just in that basement apartment, just sleeping and waking up, eating something, then sleeping again. And it's just, I think I numbed myself to even thinking about anything. Like, I didn't really think too much of, like,
Hmm.
why am I doing this? And I'm missing home. I just was like, again, this is not an option. So let's just continue to figure this out. And that's what I remember of my initial first days is I was just going with it, like, whatever. If I need to sleep, I'll sleep. If I need to wake up, I'll wake up. But whatever, like, we'll just do this. And I guess it started after that. So I wasn't in that phase for a while, but yeah, that was my first day in Canada.
Okay, so that does take me to the next question, which is that, in the initial years when you move to a new country, obviously it's challenging, and especially the first year. And you have always talked about how your first year was such a mess because there was so many things happening, and you didn't have any time to even process that what is going on. Like, for the first time, you were started working, you started managing your meals and managing your finances, and the list goes on. And you have
Mm,
always said that there was no option going back. Tell us more
mm.
about the first year.
Oh, the first year, yeah, definitely was a big roller coaster ride. I remember the first time, so my college was in downtown Toronto. And the first day I came here, I came with my cousin because she's like, let me take you to downtown because it's, I don't know where to go, and I didn't have my cell service at that point. So she came with me, and she kind of showed me around, but she was new to downtown as well, so she didn't know either. So we were just Google mapping our way to the campus, and we made it. And I got a sense of it. And then the next day, I was supposed to come by myself. And I remember I came by myself, and I was so lost. I got out of Union Station. All I knew was I had to go straight and I had to take a right. And I forgot that I had to take a right from whichever street, and I just kept going straight. So I was from Union Station all the way to Nathan Phillips, and I was like, well, this does not look familiar. This is not how it was. So I was like, okay, I'll continue walking a little bit more. And I kept walking, and I was walking in circles. Just I had no clue what was happening, to the point where I was so lost I started crying. And then I saw Tim Hortons, and then I remember my sister was like, oh, Tim Hortons has Wi-Fi. So I went inside Tim Hortons, connected to the Wi-Fi, and then I found, okay, search where George Brown is. And then I was finally able to find it, and then I realized, okay, this is the turn I missed. But then even I asked a few people around, but not
Mhm.
everybody knows where George Brown is. They're like, which intersection? I was like, I don't know, George Brown College. Like, that's all I know. So it was from that day onwards, I've been lost so many times in downtown. It took me a while to understand the ways and where to come, and where exactly to go back for everything.
Just like all of us.
Just all of us, just like all of us, right? Like, and if I need to get my sin number, I need to do things, like, I'm like, where do I go? So you're just like lost half of the time. And then, as I said, like, I started working within the same week, and I was working at Popeyes. So working for the first time in any way is very hard, because you're not used to
Yeah.
working for anybody. And then working in fast food is a completely different story altogether, because you're dealing with customers, you're dealing with the heat, and just cleaning the whole place after it shuts down. It's such a long process. So I think, yeah, the first year, honestly, yeah, I didn't really think too much of what's going on. I just kept going on, of like, okay, this is what needs to be done. There just was so much to do, and you only have so much energy and time to just cope up with that. There's no time to think, hey, is this feeling good to me, or is this feeling bad to me? Am I liking this or not? It was just, there's only one option. You got to make money. How do you make money? This is a job. You do this job. What else you got to do? You have to go to your college. Like, this is it. Like, there were things that are there, and you just figured out how to do that thing. And there's no space and time to think, oh, do I like that or not? And then, when I started college, I didn't know how to make friends. I've never had to make friends in my life. I've always had friends in my life. And as I said, I've been in the same high school. Literally every single person knew me. So coming, and my professors knew me. So from there, imagine you're dropping out in this new class where I have no clue of even one person in that class. I had no clue of the professors. And for the first, I would say, few weeks, I didn't really talk to anybody. I don't know what happened to me. I'd never been this introvert of a person. I'm a type A extrovert. I've always been that. But it's new. It's unfamiliar territory, and I wasn't really confident in speaking in English that much. And just not even, like, I just wasn't sure who do I talk to. There weren't that many Indians in George Brown. The population was very small. And then you're seeing all these ethnicities you've never seen in your life. So figuring all that out too, I would just go to class, come back, go to class, and come back. I never talked to anybody. And then slowly and slowly I started talking to one
Mhm.
person, and then I met somebody else, and I made just a few friends, but they weren't like friends I would hang out with every day, because I had to come back to Brampton and I was already working. So there wasn't that much time either to just hang around and just figure out what's happening. So the first semester just really flew by, and then by the time summer came, and I started becoming more grounded, and I started making more friends. I think that's when I started going out a little bit and started seeing downtown a little bit. And then we would have socials on
Mhm.
campus, and my friends, the friends I made, were the ones who already were a few semesters in. So they were, again, more domesticated in Canada as compared to I was. So they were also really helped me a lot to be like, we can go here, you can do this, this is exactly how the campus works, and the career centers and the peer tutoring. Even figuring out the campus life took me about 6 months, because there's no one guide to it. Like, you're just consuming so much information in the first orientation week. So then slowly and slowly I started understanding even just everything that's in the campus, from the cafeteria to everything around. And
Also the confusion with the classes, that all the classes are in different classes rather than everything happening in a single class, right?
Oh my God, that was so. First of all, like figuring that out was such a big thing that, oh, okay, this is now in a different campus, and George Brown is similar to any other campus. They have 7 to 8 different buildings within the same neighborhood. So it wasn't that, everything is in the same building. You would just finish that class and then you'd be like, oh, this kind of class is not in this building. That means it's in the other building. Even figuring
Yeah.
that out wasn't something that was just, it comes to you, right? So yeah, all of that was just honestly so much. And by the time I was finishing my second semester, I had to already start thinking about my co-op because it was coming up soon. So by the time I just got a little bit comfortable in just being in the campus, I had to start doing this whole new job search journey again, and figuring out how to do a co-op and how to find a co-op. So by the end of my third semester, I only had one semester left. And that was a semester in which you had to lock down your co ops. And I was even just starting this process. So I think that transition again was so quick. Literally, my first 2 years in Canada, I feel like I've lived like 5 years within those 2 years. There was just so much going on. So I then figured out a way to get an on campus job. And then, using that on campus job, I applied to RBC. And I got my RBC part time job. I think at that point I was in my third semester. So by the time third semester came, that's when I had a better grip and I was able to make the most of it. And I was still much early on as compared to, I guess, when I've seen other students getting that. Um, but then I think that's when my feelings started catching up to me, and I started feeling a lot more homesick, and I started feeling a lot more lost. Because you're with your thought for the first time. Started feeling very lonely. It was just, I think that's when my feelings caught up to me, and at towards the end of that first year is when I started feeling very lost, because I didn't really know what I'm looking forward
Hmm.
to anymore. I just knew, okay, I had to get this co-op, and then I get this co-op, then what, and then maybe I'll get a full-time job. But all of a sudden, you're supposed to have a life in this new country where life has never existed before, where there's has been no structures, there's no favorite restaurant, there's no the shopkeeper you go to every single time you need something. None of that
Yeah.
is there anymore. There's no parents, there's no relatives, right? So I think I was just so lost of thinking, okay, now I have to build a life here, and this is it. So even to just being like, hey, how am I gonna start managing my expenses? How I'm gonna start buying furniture, and buying things that will make my life better. All of that just took so much mental capacity, and on the top of that, focusing on that job search part. So it was, yeah, it's just that part I don't really want to relive ever again. I think I'm very happy it passed, and I'm very happy it's in the past. But when I was in there, I was just, yeah, I was like, how am I supposed to just do this? And who am I supposed to talk about this? Even though I had my sister here, she was dealing with her own thing because she was going through her
Hmm.
PR at that point, and there was just so much going on for her. So yeah, I think it was that's how my first year was. I think I'm gonna stop at that.
No, I think I can relate to each and everything that you have said, Ramneet. So much is happening. You have no time to process. You feel absolutely lost. You're just trying to
Mm,
really just pass your day each with every each day. You just want to like pass today and just move on to the next day. You don't really know. You don't have time to really
mm,
introspect that, okay, what just happened? Am I feeling okay? Is this all right? Is it really something I want to do? Am I missing your family? Or what is really happening? You are just completely lost. So yes, during your program, it was the time to find your internship, like you mentioned, and you are a true believer that people you surround yourself with plays a vital role in your life, and one of them insisted you on applying to KPMG, whereas you thought that you will not get it,
mhm.
and the rest is history. So who was that person?
It was Christina. She's my best friend. I met her. She was in my accounting class, and we met in the library actually, where we were both. It's so unethical to say this stuff, but we were both photo printing, photocopying our textbook because we nobody had money to buy $1,000
Of
textbook. Like
course.
I didn't get money from my parents to buy a textbook. They only paid my tuition, and I was earning what $400 every 2 weeks. That was my wage at that point. So in $800 a month, I was supposed to pay my rent, pay for my commute, which was very expensive coming from Brampton to downtown. So yeah, nobody had time to print. Nobody had time to buy textbooks. So I would just get textbooks from the library and just photocopy that chapter that I'm supposed to study that week. And that's how literally I had photocopies and copies of binders with all textbook. And apparently everybody, all pretty much a lot of international students do that. And Christina herself was from Russia. She, even though she came here as a PR, she was still new. She was an ESL student, still figuring out how to do this. It's just her dad was here, so she was able to get a PR. So when I met her, she was already at that point working for an investment firm as an admin. So she was in the system in a way. She had goals, she knew about the big four. She was well versed with accounting industry and how that works. So when I started talking to her, and I started realizing there's so much I don't know, and there's so much I feel I'm behind at. And that's when I realized, okay, all the domestic students here work, and they work in industries that matter. They all are strategizing their part-time experiences, and are not just thinking that they should do a minimum wage service job. So she opened up my world to this whole accounting industry and big fours, and how to interview, and how do you strategize your part-time work and then co-op. So she was the biggest influence in me having to get my shit together, honestly. She was the one who always pushed me to talk to the professors, to build that relationship with the professors, because it's so intimidating here. Your professors are there for you for 4 months. There's no like class teacher as we would have back home, and then and that's it. That then they're done. Nobody sticks around after the class because
Yeah.
I had to rush to the other class, and I was always either had to rush to my shift. So I never really thought, okay, I should stay around and talk to the professor. I didn't even know you could talk to the professor. So then, yeah, she was the one who taught me all of that. Yeah, she helped me really get my shit together. Started helping me with understanding, just okay, like, hey, I'm going to this interview. Do you want to come with? There used to be those like networking sessions and group interview sessions. So she was the one who would tell me about all of that. So once I started hanging out with her, and I started talking to my professors. One professor helped me understand my accounting professor, actually. He was the one who helped me understand, okay, this is different things where you can target. Then I had an HR professor who helped me prepare my resume and cover letter, and actually taught me how to job search correctly, according to the Canadian, industry. How does ATS work? How do you write a resume focusing on your skills versus experience? How do you paraphrase your experience and bring out the points that they're looking for? How do you prepare for an interview? So with both of their help, I had applied at only 4 positions, and I ended up getting 3 interviews, and then I ended up landing KPMG. So this is how much right guidance can save you, because before that I just had created one resume which a co-op advisor helped me prepare, which wasn't the greatest. It wasn't not what the industry standard is, and I just uploaded that on Indeed, and I hit apply to like 300 jobs, and I got no callback. So I was like, this is not working, and I thought this is what job search is, until yes, people started telling me, okay, how do you do it correctly? So absolutely, she was the one who was like, when I saw KPMG, I was like, this is not happening. So why even apply for it? And I remember she giving me a call and being like, today's the last day. Did you submit your application? And I was like, I didn't. I'm not going to get it. So she's like, are you crazy? You have to submit your application. And I did. and I ended up getting an interview and she didn't, which is so surprising, right? Like you
Wow.
would think that that would work in that way, but then she had some issues in the format she submitted in or something like that, which she ended up getting in KPMG later on as well. So we both worked with KPMG together at one point. So yeah, she helped me do that, and then again, my professors helped me prepare. So every single thing that has happened in my career, or just in my life in Canada so far, has been because of the people I've had in my life. My sister's the one who suggested me to go for this co-op course in Georgetown, which was the best decision because if I didn't have a co-op, I can't imagine how hard it would have been for me to enter any industry
Industry,
because
yeah.
entry level positions is are not really entry level positions, right? They expect you to come with experience because everybody here has 3 to 4 co-ops while they are studying. So students graduate with about 2 years of an experience versus you graduating with none. Like that's a big difference, and you'll end up filling that gap somewhere. So yeah, she helped me pick that course and then everything else happened because of that. So I absolutely believe in who you surround yourself with, and what you consume is what you end up becoming. And that's why I'm very mindful of the people I have around me, the people I spend my time with, the people I allow to know about my life. I'm a very private person. Outside of my professional career, not a lot of people know about my life. And I've been very mindful about it that way because it's just, I don't want to expose myself to people or in places where I know I'm not sure if that is where I should be. So I take my time to figure that out. And once I do, I keep those people very dear in my life because that's just what it is. You end up becoming your community, and you got to make sure your community is protected and is growing with you and is always catered to. You have to always care for people in that way too, and can't just expect to be sitting around people and expecting, again, for opportunities to fall on your lap. That doesn't happen either just because you're surrounding yourself with people. So you have to care for them as well, and you have to nurture that relationship as well. But yeah, this is my story of how Christina helped me get into the big four, and as you said, rest is history.
Awesome. You transitioned from a co op to a full time position at KPMG, and you are currently a tax consultant there. So you collected your experience for your PR, permanent residency. I always try to mention it because sometimes people are like, "What is PR?" So it's the permanent residency, and you did 2 years. You collected 2 years of experience rather than 1 year because you wanted to build your professional experience rather than doing your bachelor's,
Mhm.
and you got your PR in January 2020.
Yes.
But you also gave your IELTS exam 4 times. And after and after the second time, you did something else before you sat for the exam. Please share with our listeners what was that, Ramneet?
Oh my God. This is IELTS and me are like this is like one of that what do you say, like unattainable boyfriend that just keeps making it try to play hard to get. It's the very exact thing. Okay, so what happened with IELTS was there was actually a few reasons why I did that. So because I didn't finish my bachelor's, I came for an advanced diploma with the intention to turn it into a bachelor's. But when I did that assessment in my campus and I got that sheet of tuition, I looked at that and I was like, yeah, there's no way I'm letting my parents pay this much money for finishing a bachelor's. Just didn't make sense to me because they probably end up paying, like, putting all their retirement savings into this. So then I was like, okay, we'll go for a co-op, and if that works, then we'll see. That was always my plan
Mhm.
B, that I would come back and finish my bachelor's. But then my plan A was to get a good co-op and turn that into a full-time position. So when I got into KPMG, and I started working right away, and it turned into a full-time right away. So I had no gap between my work permit start date and my experience start date. So then, but because I don't have that much education, my points weren't enough for PR after 1 year. So I had to do 2 years. There was no other option for me to do 1 year and apply for PR because my points were too low. So after, but I had that 3 year work permit. So I was like, it's okay. It's not a big risk. I can do those 2 years. And honestly, once
Mhm.
I started working, I even forgot, okay, like I'm on a work permit. I need to work towards my PR. I just knew, okay, 2 years, I'll apply for it. It'll happen. It'll be easy. And then I started giving my IELTS. And when the first time I did my IELTS, um, everything was fine. Honestly, IELTS wasn't the problem. I had 8 bands or 9 bands in every single um, whatever speaking and whatever the modules
Yep.
except from writing. I had no clue why writing would be so hard, because one, I got into the habit of typing and I wasn't writing anymore, which we were in India. So writing a full essay again was so much work, because and you had to write with a pencil, which is
Mm.
even worse, and my writing is not the greatest. And when you're in a time crunch, that's when I realized, when I was writing, I had so many errors and mistakes, and I would keep correcting that, and it was not great. So I got 6.5 in writing, and even a point 0.5 increase would change my overall points for my PR by like 20 points, and that was my make or break. So I had no other option, because I'm already working, right? I can't change my education. There's nothing else I can change but IELTS. So I was hell bent into increasing my point 0.5, because that points were very important. So then I gave it for another shot, because I was like, okay, maybe I'm not prepared enough. I'll give it one more time. And I gave it one more time, same thing. I got 9, 8.5 in everything, and then I get 6.5 in writing. And I was like, why is this happening? I just don't understand. It's supposed to be easy. And then somebody told me, hey, you can give IELTS on a computer now. And I was like, this is great. Why did you not tell me about this before? So then I gave my third IELTS exam via computer. So this was much better, because I could type in this, and I gave still 6.5. At this point, it was very frustrating, because every exam is like what, $350. So at this point, I already spent more than $1,000 on just giving these IELTS
Yeah.
exams, all within a year. And that's when I had to accept that, okay, I need to take some coaching or something, to maybe something is wrong. Because
Mhm.
once I gave the computer test, that's when I realized, okay, the problem is not the writing, the problem is not that, the problem is something else. And that's when I took this free online course, just for writing, which actually gave a full breakdown of how do they score and what do they score you on. And that's when I was like, oh, okay, this is what I'm missing, because there were a few like structures, and how many points do include, and how do you do an introduction, and main paragraph and closing arguments, and there are some extra points for longer sentences or conjunctions. So all these things I realized after I took that course, and then I finally gave it for the fourth time, and I finally got that 7 band that I needed in my writing. And that's when my points were enough for me to get my PR. But that took me so long. Like, that IELTS exam was, after the fourth turn, I was like, this is so easy. I can start teaching it, because I've done it so many times now. Like, it's cakewalk now. Listening, reading is cakewalk. I was like, I know how to find the answers. I know how to give the answers. It's not too nerve wracking. So yeah, that's my IELTS story of wanting to get a zero point 0.5 band. That zero point 0.5 band made me give IELTS 4 times. Yeah.
Yes, IELTS definitely takes a toll on toll on everybody, and I think I mentioned it so many times on
Yeah.
the podcast that why are we even asked to do the IELTS again? We did the IELTS. We came to Canada. We studied in English. We are working
Right?
in the English language. What are you talking about? Why would you ask us to do it
Yeah.
again?
And what part of my profession is going to require me to write an essay?
Exactly.
I don't need an essay. You want an email? I'll write you an email. But nobody's asking me to write an essay about the benefits of an umbrella, for God's sakes. Like, I don't know. What do you want out of me? And I'm not writing letters to anybody anymore. So it's like, it's absurd. Like, okay, I get it. Okay, you want to do speaking? Sure. Right? Listening? Okay. But reading and writing makes no sense to me. Like, it's money making business, honestly.
Okay, so moving on, so Ramneet, I got my PR at the beginning of this year. Or if anybody is listening in some other year, I'm talking about January 2022, I got my PR. And I was about to sit in the car when I got an email. A friend of mine was supposed to drop me home from work, a colleague of mine. And I still remember the feeling I had, the feeling of relief I had when I saw that confirmation email. The whole drive from work to home was like 15 to 20 minutes. And for the first 50, after 15 minutes, my colleague shook me and asked me that, hey, are you okay? And by that time, I hadn't told him about the email. And I said, yeah, why did you ask me that? He said, because these were the longest 15 minutes you have ever stayed quiet for, because I am always talking. but but yeah, in those 15 minutes, I think I was talking to myself, and I was talking to myself and saying that yes, now I can focus on things that I really want to do. Now I can invest my time on things I actually love. Now I can work on my thick accent, the podcast. So Ramneet, how were you feeling when you got that email, confirmation email? Was there a moment
Hmm.
of introspection that, okay, I did it, what's next?
Hmm. Hmm. Yes, that's a good question actually, and it's very my story is definitely very um not as interesting as yours. So I think because, as I said, like because I was already working in the industry I wanted to work in, I was already doing the things I wanted to do. I was living in downtown. I never really, as I said, never really had this in my mind that my life is going to change after PR because my life was already there. So PR was for me more of a admin process than it
Hmm.
had any other
Okay.
significance, honestly. Like, of course, there is that side of you which you want to not having to deal with the permits and the visa situations. So for me, it was purely admin. But what ended up happening was when I applied for my PR, I applied for it. I in January 2020, I didn't actually get my PR. I got my invitation letter,
Okay.
so I had to submit my documents, and that's when what the starting of pandemic, right?
Hmm.
So I just had come back from India at that point, so I remember feeling okay. I got to start, assembling everything, and my medical was actually on the third day of the announced lockdown. So I was so concerned that I'm not going to be able to get these things because nobody had any clue of what's
Hmm.
happening
Yeah.
and how long it's going to be. So all my entire uh, like the police check, the medical process, all of that was much more different as compared to others because it was in the beginning of pandemic, and then even for the police check, embassies were closed, so they were only picking up passport from your house. So you can only imagine the just the nervousness I had in figuring out will I be able to be done on time. Once I finished and I submitted everything, and then then it was just a waiting game. And I actually do vividly remember when I got it. I was actually working, and it was 11 o'clock in the morning when I get an email of there's been an update in your account. And what ended up happening before that was because the PR usually takes 4 months, but in COVID it took more than 9 months. So I didn't get my confirmation of PR until the January of 2021.
Whoa.
So that was a long process to wait. And in between, my work permit expired. So I was like, okay, now my work permit expired, and now my PR hasn't come yet. So then I had to apply for another work permit. And I was waiting for that work permit because of, I could work on an applied basis. But that's where my anxiety was coming in, is because of the gap between these processes, and my work permit in itself, which again takes you what, 3 months to get in a usual time.
Hmm.
I had applied for it early on, and I still didn't get my work permit until December of that year. So there were a good few months where I had no status. If I had to go back home, I couldn't, because I was on no status at that point. My PR wasn't here yet. And then in my mind, you always have that question, what if I don't get a PR? That's when I actually started thinking of like, oh, what if I get rejected and I don't have a work permit? Then what am I going to do? And that's when I started thinking about plan B's of like, okay, like would I go back home and apply again and wait for a few months? Because I do have the experience, I have all my documents correct. Like there isn't
Definitely.
going to be anything that I would be rejected on. But the thing was, because I'm an accountant without a CPA, as a part of the NOC code I applied under, there was written that you need designations. And this is actually apparently a big point of discussion for everybody in accounting. So there were forums and forums of people asking the same question of like, hey, applying for my PR under this code. Do I need to be a CPA? I'm not a CPA. And then there were some people who were saying, you should be matching 80% of whatever is in that NOC. But I wasn't, because no accountant can do it all. Like you are very specialized accountants.
Mm.
So for me, didn't make sense that I could do 80%, because that included audit, advisory, and tax. And I'm like, you cannot be all three as an accountant. But then I started talking around my office, and I started talking to a few people who got their PRs, and everybody had the same NOC code. So I was like certain, okay, like this is correct. But still, you always prepare for the worst. So yeah, I was actually working at that time when I got a update. And before that, literally 2 weeks before that, is when I got my work permit. So, I had already had that update email, and I opened it and I was like, okay, I get my work permit. And I was like, fine. It's still not PR, but at least I have something. And then I see an email again, and I knew at this point it has to be the PR, right? And then I'm opening it with my one eye closed, because I was like, oh my God, if it's a rejection, it's going to be really bad. And then thankfully, it wasn't a rejection, it was a confirmation of PR. So I right away called my parents, and I let them know. And then, we all cried a little bit. And then, it was just a sense of relief from that aspect for me, of that, okay, thank God my permit is not expired, my PR has come in, and now I can continue my life. It was just that, like, I was just very anxious that if I didn't get this, I have to give up this life, which I don't really want to give up. And I have to find other ways to make it work. So for me, a relief was different. But then I think I did get that sense that, okay, now I have nothing stopping me. There was a while I continued my accounting career, because I had to be there. I had to get my statement of experience, and in case things don't go well, if I need to get another one. And that's when I really started questioning of, do I want to do accounting forever, or do I want to do something else? Or because before that, it wasn't an option. I was liking it, but I also knew this is it.
Hmm.
Like I'm gonna get my PR, and until I get my PR, there is no switching happening. This is where you're gonna stick around. So that's when I did have that moment of starting thinking of like, okay, now it's life. Even though before that it's still life, but it's still with an expiry date, and now there's no expiry date. So that's when I started thinking about uh, the startup and the international student space. And this was all happening in pandemic, when we were all going through our fair share of being home, of things not opening up. I hadn't seen my family for 2 years at that point. So it was just a whole lot of other things going on, honestly. And I was in that phase anyways in my life, where I was really questioning what am I doing here? Why am I doing this? And a whole lot of mental health issues happening at that point. So yeah, my relief was very different of getting that PR. So that's my story of getting that confirmation of PR.
Wow, that was a full roller coaster ride right there. So, you did talk about the startup here. So, let's just talk about this marvelous initiative you and your co founders have started, is Empower, where till date you have helped more than 14,000 students from 67 plus nationalities in 110 schools and have partnered with more than 40 employers. And I'm sure the number will be increasing by the time this episode is out. So please tell us all about it, Ramneet.
Hmm. Yeah, no, it's such a nice feeling when you hear, the impact of it. That's my favorite part. But Ism Power honestly was so unexpected too. I was doing my own thing on LinkedIn, creating content around helping international students, and it was all from my own journey because I realized how hard it is. And when I would meet other students, they would ask me the same questions that I had when I was a student of how did you get into Big Four, how do you create your resume, networking, all sorts of things. So when I was meeting those students, that's when it slowly started hitting me of that the knowledge I have, I need to be able to pass it on to others because I went through my fair share of struggle, so I don't want anybody else to go through it. And as I said, like I believe in the power of community. So I knew if I can give it forward, I'd be able to make that impact that somebody was able to make for me. So I started doing that through LinkedIn and through creating content. But then I kind of had an idea of wanting to take it to the next level and wanting to turn it into an organization, or maybe some
Mhm.
like career coaching for international students or something like that. So I was still contemplating that when I met Pat, who was running Empower. At that point we were calling it Empower, as a non-for-profit, and she already had a team of 10 volunteers, and she was doing mentorships for international students. So when I looked at her organization, I was like, this is it. Like, this is exactly what I was picturing of building it to. And she's already built it to that point. And I've never been a competitor in that way that I want to reinvent the wheel. I'm always up for collaboration. And if we can come together and make it better, then why not? So I just proposed to Pat that, hey, I'd love to be a part of this, and she was actually trying to propose it to me to be a part of it. So we were both in our way trying to persuade each other to make each other a part of this organization. So that's what I joined Empower, and we continue to do the mentorship. Until so I joined Empower in the August of 2020, and then we continued to do the mentorship and workshops. And then we were just sitting one day, and we were again discussing about our issues, and we realized that the problem is so big that we wouldn't be able to solve it through mentorship, or we wouldn't be able to solve it just being a non for profit. We have to create a solution at scale, and to be able to do that, we need to get the fundings in, and there's no government fundings for international students because it comes under the
Yeah.
colleges. They expect the colleges to do that, and you're not a PR or an immigrant at that point, so you don't come under that bucket either. So there is no government funded initiative for international students. So that's when we realized, okay, we have to make it a for profit company. And then we slowly started pivoting. In the Feb of 2021, we came up with a job search course, which was designed by recruiters and hiring managers in helping students understanding the job search process completely, and giving them the information from the people who do this for a living. And that was a great success, and we started getting students on it. But then again, that was limiting because we could only take so many students in, and we could only do so many cohorts of that. And slowly from there is when, towards the end of the year, we got to the idea of the platform, because we can do all we can to prepare the students to get the job, but if the employers are not educated in what it takes to be an international student and what it is to hire an international student, and a lot of the unconscious biases they had, if we can change that,
Mhm.
there's not going to be any value of students learning how to do job search.
Exactly.
So that's essentially how it all came together. It was, ever since again we've started, you can see like we've pivoted so many times until we found this perfect solution, which we have currently, where we connect with employers to source the jobs directly to the students, so that the students who are going through the program and trying to apply the jobs, they are applying for jobs that matter, and they are going to the employers that value international students and that are already aware that they're going to get international student applicants, right? So it removes a lot of guesswork from the students and from the employers. And then we started connecting to colleges, because outside of the big tier universities and colleges, uh, everybody else, which is 90% of the colleges, are really struggling in helping their international student population because they are relatively new. They don't have that many resources built yet, dedicated to international students. They're still kind of getting the grasp of what it is that the international students look for. So we started partnering up with them so that again we can source these jobs to the students and the resources we've built to the students. So that's how, and we've been doing this. Our job board launched in sort of like November-ish, December last year. That's when we started building it, and then we were able to roll it out to people, for employers to use it in March of this year. So we are relatively very new to this whole ecosystem version of our platform, and now we have our MVP one coming out in October, where the employers would be able to interact with the students as well. And right now, it's one way that we post the jobs and we source them the applicants, but then it will become more interactive where they can do it directly with each other, and there would be all sorts of technological integration they can do with it. So it's honestly a lot of pivots, and we are still not 100% there where we need to be. The ecosystem is too big and too complex. When we are dealing with employers, we are competing with like big enterprise clients like LinkedIn, essentially, right? Like we are trying to tell them why our solution works better than the other solution, versus when we are dealing with colleges, it's very different. And when you're dealing with a smaller college versus when you're dealing with a bigger university, it's so different. So there's so much iterations and so much updates and pivots we need to keep taking as the feedback we are intaking. But I have so much faith in the team we've put together. Pat herself, who's the CEO, she is so dedicated. She actually left her job earlier this year to do this full time.
Mhm.
And she comes from an entrepreneurial background as well. And we have some amazing board of directors, and now we've onboarded a team of 5. So we are working towards, and the reception we've had from students, from employers, has been so amazing. Like, students have been the easiest to be connected to, because honestly we all need this solution, and we understand the value of a solution like that and the value of community. So getting to 14,000 students, we've spent $0 on marketing so far. There has been no paid marketing,
Wow.
nothing of that source. This is all organic. So you can realize how much students
Needed
need
this,
this. The
yeah.
problem where we are seeing now is that the capacity at which we can help them, and we need to bring in the tech to be able to help them at scale, and that's what we are building now, because there's just the population is just so big, and this product is something they really need. So yeah, ISIM Power honestly has been a blessing. And again, it happened because I connected to Pat. So can I say, like, the people you surround yourself with, the people you're connected to, is where how the opportunities can come to you. But then you have to be prepared enough and brave enough to be able to take that. And I think now I'm seeing myself at this point of letting go of a well built big four career and stepping into startup world, which I have no idea about. I don't come
Mhm.
from a tech background. I don't come from an entrepreneurial background. Everybody in my family has always had jobs. So building something like this and getting out of your skin in a way of putting yourself out there, and again starting for ground up in a way, in a new industry, in a new sector, this whole ed tech and HR tech, it's such a big world on of its own, and there's so many players and so many things we need to work towards. But it's honestly, when I see the impact we've been able to make from it, and when you hear the stories of students, because you and me and anybody who's listening, we if you've been in this place and if you've been in this journey, you know how valuable getting that one right job can be. You know how
Definitely.
easy it can make your life, and how big of an impact it can have, not just on you but your family. So we know the value of that job that we're trying to help the students get. And when you hear that impact, there's no better work that you can do, because we're still building a company, which I've always wanted to do. It's so funny. I remember when I was it was my first year in KPMG, and we were all sort of chatting about our future. And I remember saying it to one of my coworkers. We were talking about becoming a partner at that firm. And if you're a partner at KPMG, you're technically self-employed because it's your own practice. And they were talking about getting to that level, and I was like, oh yeah, I am going to have my own practice. There's no question to that. Like, I am going to build something for myself. When that happens is the question. So it's funny that I never realized that it could happen so quickly, and that when I started creating content on LinkedIn, that would have led to me to have now being a in the founding team of a startup. It's wild for me when I think that's happening in my life and I'm being a part of something so big. But then when I see it from my day to day life and from things I've done um, on a ground level for it to come to it, and the things I still continue to do every single day to be able to turn this into the success that we want it to turn. Like, it comes down to the hard work and the grit we've talked in the beginning. But I'm just so thankful that I can be a part of this, because we need it. The students need it. It's already too late to have to build this, but it's not too late to not change it now. And that's all we can do. We can change this so that the investment we put into coming to a new country, and the money we've put in this country, we get a return of that. And it's high time students think that way, because we are not doing anybody a favor, or nobody's doing us a favor by letting us come and stay in this country. We pay a price emotionally, financially, and we deserve to get that return out of it too. And nobody deserves to take advantage of us and our community and the money we bring in, and build better and bigger infrastructures and bigger paychecks for themselves, and not give it back to the students. So I think it's high time the students ask for it back, and they're asking for it back, and they're hungry for it. So yeah, I'm just so grateful that I can be a little part of this entire journey. And it's such a blessing. Honestly, I can't still wrap my head around that we've been able to build this, and how much love and appreciation we have gotten from everybody in the community. It's honestly amazing.
Wow, Ramneet, I'm sort of speechless. Those were some powerful words you have said. And correct me if I'm wrong. I just want to mention that this is an absolutely free platform. It's built by international students for the international students, where they understand the principles of recruitment. They
Hmm.
help you understand your hero skills and will tell you what you can bring to the table. They will provide both perspectives of with or without experiences and how it's linked to your permanent residency.
Hmm.
Also, something that will stay with you even after you get your job and will help you in the long run.
Yep.
And all the necessary links to connect with Ramneet and her team can be found in the show notes.
Yeah, thank you so much for including that. But you absolutely, this platform is for free for students to join in, for free for students to apply for those jobs. We do not take any percentage of their salary or any fees from the students of any source. I think, as I said, they've paid enough. And the people who really need to pay for this now are the universities, the colleges, and the employers to get access to this talent. And that's who we make them pay. The job search program that we have with hiring managers and recruiters, that one is the only paid program we have, is because we need to, pay the hiring managers and the recruiters. And honestly, for the value students are getting, as you said, they get a lifetime access to these hiring managers and recruiters, which are their instructors. Per se, we have office hours every single month. So what students can do is they can literally just pop in that office hour, work with them to prepare for an interview, to prepare for anything they need to, because the course in itself is on demand. So when they go through that, it's all pre-recorded learning. We have about 112 modules in there. There's templates. There is, it's a very like action-based learning. And once you get out of that, you can start your job search journey and have the access to your instructors for a lifetime, so that you can keep coming back and keep asking those questions to these people. And that's where the money comes for, and we're hoping that, again, with the tech platform that we're building, that we can make it into some sort of a subscription and make the colleges pay that subscription, so that even this can be free for the students. But for now we are bootstrapping, so we kind of need that money to put that money back into that SaaS. But absolutely, it's built by international students. I was an international student. Pat is an international student. Everybody we are hiring, it has been
Mhm.
so nice that have been international students. The Our marketing manager just moved to Calgary from Thailand. Our sales rep, she herself is an MBA student. So we are trying our best to stand by the values we talk. We so proudly share, and that's what I want to build. That's how I envision it. It's just I want to employ and make international students get employed by all these great companies and give them the avenues to build careers and live this life, and live this dream that they come here for. And by no means they should have to sacrifice that or give up on that permanently. Sometimes you have to take a detour, and sometimes you have to do what you have to do in the situation that is in front of you. But as long as we can bring them back and we can make them succeed at one point, I think that's when the mission would be successful. And that's when we can say we've made the impact that we are trying to make, is ultimately they get back to it and be able to achieve what they want to achieve.
This is indeed something to be proud of. Like you said, you guys are proud, and we all are proud of you. And I really, really hope the listeners who are looking for jobs or just for a better career in Canada, these guys are your go-to people. Reach out to them. Like I said before, the links can be found in the show notes. So, Ramneet, in our earlier call, you mentioned that students sometimes come to you and ask that how can they get rid of their accent? I just want to answer to that question that don't. In capital letters, I'm telling you, don't do that. The accent does has nothing to do with how you're going to do your job. And I've said it before so many times on the pod that it takes few months or few weeks to get accustomed to each other accents. It has nothing to do how you're going to do your job.
Absolutely. I think just we as Indians need to get out of this obsession about accents. Not just in the, I'm just not talking about just in the sense of, you trying to not care about your accent. Even on the other end of spectrum, I don't know if you ever gotten it. Sometimes when I would be speaking, I would get comments of like, "Oh, your accent is so fake," or "Your accent is so pretentious," and I just. And then, I would get the other side of the spectrum where students would come to me and ask me, how can I get rid of my accent? And how can I speak the way you do, or speak the way Americans do, or get that American accent or get that Canadian accent? And what I fail to understand in all of this is why is there no focus on the subject of that accent, right? Like, what are you trying to say?
Yeah,
What are you trying to communicate? How are you trying to communicate that? How fluent are you in that language? How comfortable are you in translating your thoughts from your head to your tongue in the
absolutely.
language you need to speak at that point, be it Hindi, be it English, be it Punjabi. When you're trying to speak it at that point, how quick is that link between your thoughts and your speech is what you need to focus on, and the words you use, and how well you can make the other person understand, and how easily can you translate that idea is what needs to be focused on. The way you say it, be it in that pretentious accent, be it in that Indian thick accent, doesn't matter, because as long as the thing you're saying is not valuable, how you say it doesn't make any difference. I could be speaking in the perfect accent, but if I'm not making any sense, nobody's going to listen to me.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to try and make sense, and if I'm going to be trying to be clear and understandable, whichever accent I speak in, people would listen to me because it matters. So that's what we need to focus on. And that's where I think the comfort and the confidence comes in, is when you have that fluency. And I remember I made this video about fluency versus accent, where I want people to think more about the fluency and think less about the accent. And the accent changes over time. You know, I don't know how you are. I'm like a sponge. I absorb everything that's around me. If I would be sitting with Australians for a week, I would be speaking in an Australian accent by the end of it. That's just who I am.
Yeah.
I have, because my best friend was Russian, there are things I pronounce in a Russian accent just because I know she's around me. And it's just is. It's not offensive. It's not I'm a wannabe trying to like get that thing. It's just the nature of people. And when you converse in it every single day, day in, day out, the kind of clients you would have, the kind of people you'll have around me, for me, it's just so happened 99% of the people I work with are Canadian white people. That, like, there's
Yeah.
no other way to say it. Those are the people I work with. So over the time, it's been 7 years I've been working with them now. So not working with them, but like I've been in Canada, right? And it's been 5 years I've been working with them. So over time it changes, and over time I guess I adapted. My fluency and my accent changed. But what helped me since day one was my fluency, because I came from a private school. I had always spoken in English, even back home. I am so thankful I had the teachers I had who pushed me to speak English, even though it's a very Punjabi dominated school. It's run by a Sikh principal, so it was like Punjabi ran really deep in our school, and all my friends were Punjabi, so you would see them making fun of you speaking in English. But I'm so thankful I had those teachers who pushed me to do that, because the moment I landed here, my fluency was something I never struggled with, because I knew how to speak in English. I knew how to translate my words in English, and I knew, because I was always on the stage, I never really had that issue with confidence. The bigger problem for me was to how do I make myself relevant here, because everything I talked about or everything I knew was relevant back home, but it wasn't relevant here. So, getting used to what's relevant here and getting used to how to talk to a certain kind of people, and how formal do I need to be versus how informal do I need to be, versus when you switch it to interviews, how do I translate my professional and my school experience into what they're looking for. Those were the things I had to struggle with more, and building that confidence again in knowing that I'm relevant enough, in knowing that people care enough to listen to what I'm saying right now. That is the confidence that took a long time to build. It was never because I was ashamed of my accent,
Hmm.
and I did not speak this way. If you will ever speak me here in Punjabi, I have a very Desi Punjabi accent because I've grown up speaking Punjabi, and
Of
that's
course.
how I will always speak Punjabi. Somehow, magically, my Punjabi will not have a Canadian accent, but that doesn't mean that I can't speak the way I'm speaking, or I can't roll my R's, or whatever I want to do. It's just
Yeah.
because it comes naturally to me. So yeah, that's what I want to tell everybody. And when you told me about this concept last time, I was like, this is so great, because having a thick accent, people, because I think we as Indians do are very judgmental, and we would make comments about people's accent or the way they speak, and we would judge people on the way they speak. And if somebody's speaking in a thick Punjabi accent, along with their English,
Yeah.
they would automatically assume this person has nothing valuable to provide, versus actually giving it a non-judgmental shot of that, hey, is this person trying to make sense? So I think this is a very cultural thing, because I never faced that here. I have Korean friends, I have Mexican friends, I have Russian friends, and everybody speaks in their own accent, and none of them have ever made me, or like I've had my parents here, they come here, they also communicate with my friends. I've never really once had them making my dad feel bad about his thick
Hmm.
Indian accent, and my dad
Yeah.
has a really thick Indian accent. So I think I find this more in Indians. Every time I'm around Indians, every time I'm within my community, that's where I see these snide comments or these jokes being made around the accents of people, and that's where why we are so self-conscious about our accent is because of ourselves. It's not because of anybody else. Because Canada is a diverse country. You have people from all ethnicities, and you'll work with people from all ethnicities. So the accents go out of the window very early on, because nobody can ever speak the same accent. We're all coming from different places. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know when we'll stop obsessing about people's either fake accent or people's thick accent. But yeah, if anybody is listening this and is contemplating, please start focusing much more on what you say than how you say it. And once you start making sense there, everybody will listen to you at one point or the other. And if they don't, then you don't want to be around those kind of people, because let's just be honest, if somebody's judging you on the accent you speak in, those kind of shallow people you don't need to surround yourself with, and you can just say tara bye bye, and let them live in their own la la land where everybody speaks in perfect American accents, because honestly, in the real world, that is just never going to exist. And we can just keep continuing to pestering ourselves over each other's accent, or we can start thinking about, are we making sense or not? So yeah, that would be my suggestion to anybody who's worried about the accent this weekend.
You have, Ramneet, articulated it perfectly. Loved it. And I also, want to say this analogy I always hear, that saying somebody, I don't like your accent, is like saying, I don't like the clothes you're wearing. Would you ever change that for anybody? No, you will not.
Imagine, right? Imagine you walk into a room and being like, "Oh, I don't like what you're wearing. Go,
Go
like
change it.
change
Yeah.
that," and you'll be like, "Sure, yeah, sure, I'm doing that for you."
So, before we get into the final segment of the podcast, Ramneet, I just want to share with all our listeners that, Ramneet, you have hosted more than 50 workshops and panel events. You have interviewed with various national media houses, and you were also awarded the top 10 women entrepreneur in Canada in 2021. And yet, I hear you saying that I don't deserve it yet because there are people doing much more. But it all comes down to how much visibility
Hmm.
one gets and how good you are at building relationships. But I have to tell you, Ramneet, you are doing an
Mhm.
incredible job. Keep up the good work and more power to you.
Oh, thank you so much for saying that. But I do actually believe in what I said before. It's, opportunities and recognition only comes your way if people are aware that you're looking for that recognition. Let me decipher this for a moment. Um, you know, letting your hard work speak for itself is, I don't think it's practical advice. Of course, you have to work hard, and you have to put in the hours and the energy to achieve whatever you want to achieve. But if I'm going to just do that and not let anybody else know what I'm trying to do, where I'm trying to go. Not connect with people, as I say, your network becomes your net worth. Not connect with people and share that message even further, or not have a presence on social media or anywhere else, or not advertise when I do get a recognition. I could be all modest and being like, oh, I don't want to share it with anybody. It's just my own thing. I don't want to come across too proud. Then nobody else is going to do that for you. Nobody's sitting here making it their life's purpose of making sure you are recognized, making sure you are um, compensated the way you deserve, or you are getting the praise you deserve, or you're getting the media coverage you deserve, or looking at you and thinking, hey, this person's not doing their PR right. I need to take on the ownership of doing their marketing for them. Nobody's doing that.
Yeah.
Everybody is so busy in their own things, everybody's so consumed in their own work, that nobody has that space to follow or to keep keep a track of everything you've done. So when you are somebody in, or not just somebody in a public space, I just feel like it's for any professional. You might not want to be a public speaker or get on a stage or build a startup. Even if you are just a worker, you just want to do well in this company. If you're not going to take out the time to have that one-on-one meeting with your performance manager, your team partners, your VPs, your CEOs, if they don't know your name, then nothing is happening for you.
Hmm.
Nobody's going to look at your chart sheet and being like, hey, why is this person not speaking up more? Of course, that recognition comes too, but it will come later. If somebody has to give an opportunity, the first name that pops in their mind would be the name they've heard the most. And that, if that person name, and if that person's not willing to do it, that's when it goes to somebody else. And again, your work needs to follow that, right? Like, if I can continue to having all these conversations but not do any of the work, and that person would be like, all this person does is just chat and not doing any work, right? So that doesn't work either. But if you're doing the work, but you are building those relationships, you are talking to people, you're asking for feedback, you're sharing with them what you're doing, and you're asking for their suggestions on what more you can do, or just keeping them updated with everything you're doing, you are going to stay fresh in their memory. And when an opportunity comes, it will come to you. And that's how my full time happened as
Hmm.
well. I got the opportunity to do a training. I was asked to prepare a presentation. I requested to give that presentation. I got that opportunity and I performed on it. And my full time offer literally came from that one presentation. So because everybody around me thought that I was already working here full time, I was not a co op.
Hmm.
It's again because I was able to ask for that opportunity and I was able to perform on it. And same with all the podcasts, even with Sagar or any other podcast I've done. There are podcasts that come to me, like you're the one who reached out to me. It's because I've put out that content on LinkedIn, and but there have been podcasts which I haven't been invited to. And if I look at it and if I think I can provide it in some way, I would never shy away from dropping a message and being like, hey, this is everything I've done. Please feel free to have a look. If you think I can provide, would love to be part of this podcast. If I'm not going to do that, opportunity is not going to come to me. And I'm not going to sit behind and wait for that opportunity to come to me. So, the top 10 in Canada, do I believe I'm the top 10 entrepreneur? I don't think so. As I said, we have a lot more work to do. When I got this, it was last year, which I was still think I was a little early on in my journey at that point. But it's also because I've done things before starting this journey, and before being an entrepreneur. So of course, it's the value effect of accumulating over time. But then, did I get it? Yes. Did I get it because I was active on LinkedIn and because I have a media presence? Yes. It wasn't because only of my entrepreneurial journey, but it's also because you having a media presence is also going to ultimately bring that presence or that public to their platform. And that's the value you bring in on the top of everything else you do. And if people don't agree to that, or people think this is too strategic, then you would not be able to grow in Canada, because you have to be strategic, and you have to be your own cheerleader in that. So this has always been my advice to everyone I've met, or to anybody who really wants to go one step further ahead than where they are currently, is that you need to become your personal cheerleader and your own advertising firm. And it's recruitment and anything in public space. It's all sales. And the better you are good at selling yourself, the better opportunities that will come your way. And that's my mantra of life. And that's how I think everything works. And that's when I sometimes find people having these debates of whether this person deserves a certain award, and whether this person gets an award because they're famous. And there are much more hardworking people out there than them. I just find it so absurd, because it's like, obviously, if you're famous, you're going to get it because you
Exactly.
have that cloud to bring to the other person. Nobody's saying that being famous comes easy.
Hmm.
Takes a lot of work, takes a lot of constant effort, but if you are there you are going to get benefits that nobody else will get, and you just have to accept that. And denying that is plain stupid, because that's just not how the world works now. And we have to get on with how world works. And now we live in a world which is all about media presence, and which is all filled with distractions. So how can you make everybody remember your story, your achievements, and how good are you at summarizing them and having it easily accessible for people somewhere, be it at a Google link, be it at your LinkedIn, be it at your own website, right? How easy you make people to access that information is ultimately what's going to make the difference. Yeah, so that's my 2 cents on this topic.
So let's just get into the final segment of the podcast, Ramneet. I call it the final MTA talk. You can answer it in one word or a sentence or howsoever you feel like. The idea is just to know more about you. So let's start with the classic question. What advice would you give to Ramneet, who is in the initial months of landing in Canada?
The advice I would give to Ramneet in the initial months would be to get out of my shell much more earlier, talk to people, and experience things without being scared of how people are going to judge me. Because I think I was very scared of everybody's judgment. So I would just shake myself and being like, wake up, look around, and go do things that you really want to do, and don't be scared of people's judgments.
Awesome. Is there any one Punjabi superstition you have been hearing whole your life and you still follow it?
Punjabi superstition. It's not a superstition, but I think it's just a discipline thing or a rule of house. I never give back a container empty. I think it's rude. My mom has always taught me, if somebody gives you something in a container, you put something back, even if it's sugar. So always giving people back full containers. That's one superstition I still follow.
Okay. So you also love Indian street food, as per my research again. So what's one of your favorite?
Golgappa. Matlab, like, through and through, there's nothing in this world that matches Golgappe ever. That's the first thing I eat the moment I land in India, from the same guy I've had in my neighborhood all my childhood. His Golgappe still tastes the same, and it is the best thing in the world. And yeah, Golgappe, no doubt whatsoever.
Okay. So are you a coffee person or a tea person?
I used to be a tea person, but for the past few years, I've become a coffee person, because I don't like the tea that I get outside. It's an insult to the chai we make, and I
100%.
don't get that much time in the morning to make chai, right? So I'm like, I remember when I came here, and I used to had that steep tea from Tim Hortons, and I was like, this is pure, shit. I'm not gonna drink this. And then my friends were like,
It's basically pani.
it's basically pani. And then my friends are like, why do you say that? And I was like, you have no idea of what chai is. And then I remember I made it for my friends. And they were like, you know what? you're correct. And they literally had like 3 glasses of chai, all of them at that time, because they were so like, what is this? And okay, again, Punjabi household or my household, we are very serious about our chai, okay? Like the
Absolutely.
consistency of it, how
Hmm.
much patti you put in it, how much
The
milk you
color.
put in it, how the color. And my mom would look at the chai and being like, this is not right. This is not done right. This is not the kind of chai I drink. So we are very
Yeah.
particular about our chai. So when I was like, come here, I was like, this is not chai. So I make chai on myself, but because every day, I can't get it from outside, so I just got into the habit of drinking coffee, and now I guess I'm hooked to that caffeine. But nothing beats chai ever in this world.
Is there any instrument or language or anything that you always wanted to learn but never got the chance to tap into it?
So much. I want to learn every single language in this world if I can. I am that person. I like learning things, but there's one thing I really want to learn is actually a piano. I've played harmonium growing up. I used to do, I was a part of the Gurbani camps, and I used to recite Shabad on my campus in school. So I've played harmonium, and I still know how to play it. But then I wanted to learn a piano. Every time I hear piano, it's like, oh, it's a melody to your ears, and if I can play that, it would be so great. So yeah, that's one thing I want to learn.
So, Ramneet, if you could be any creature in this world, what would it be and why?
I would most likely want to be a bird. Which bird? Maybe an eagle. Yeah, I would definitely like to be an eagle, to be able to fly majestically, and it's just such a regal bird. You know what I mean? Like when they're sitting, they don't have to do
Hmm.
anything, and the power and the aura they have around them, and this like they're just so regal. And I guess we have a cultural reference too, right? Guru Gobind Singh Ji used to have his Baj.
Hmm.
So when you see
Yeah.
that, right, like and they have a sharp eye, and as they say, they have a sharp vision. And that's the kind of vision I want to have. It's just like you have your eyes on your prize and you go for it. And just to be able to fly, it will be so wonderful. So yeah, I would love to be an eagle, or if I have to be an animal, then I'll just be a dog, a pet dog, because you have the best life, right? You eat, you sleep, you go out, people take care of you, you're really spoiled. So I would love to be a pet dog, and all I do is just chill in house all day. That'd be good too.
Mic drop right there. So, next is who is your go to person when you feel stuck?
hmm I have two go-to people actually. One is my sister. I live with her. She's technically my best friend. We only have a 2 years age gap between each other, so we've grown up like that. I've always shared everything with her. So yeah, every time I'm stuck, I always just, I love to think out loud. And a lot of times I'm not really looking for advice, but just to like soundboard my own ideas. So, I love to share that with them, and it's a virtue of her, and Hannah, who's the other person I share everything with, that they don't ever try to tell me what to do or ever being like, I think you should do this. They always try to ask me questions to help me, dig even deeper and kind of come to a conclusion. And they would give their own 10 cents and their experience, but they would still not give me a conclusive, I think this is the correct answer. They would always be like, what do you think, is the correct answer? And then they're trying to get me to that. So my sister's one, and Hannah, she was my performance manager before at KPMG. And now, she's one of the closest friends I have. And yeah, she's the same quality. She's very non-judgmental about everything in this world. So she's one of those person I can always go and I can always share things, and she would never have an opinion or judgment about anything, and she would give me that space to again to come to that conclusion myself, but not shy away from asking me uncomfortable questions or surfacing um, anything that, that's harsh or that's too direct. I love that quality of my friends is nobody uh, is ever shy to give me criticism or tell me on my face when I'm thinking something is too like either shallow or is not correct or is just out of character. They're very open to do that, but none of them ever give me opinions. They always just ask me questions to help me get there. So yeah, these are my go-to people to just go whenever I'm stuck in anything.
Okay. So, what's the first thing you notice about somebody when you meet them?
I think body language for sure. I'm a very I'm a pure observer. I observe people from everything to their body language to the way they do a certain things to the way they say a certain things. I like to create that observation of like, okay, like where's this person coming from. So I love to observe people's body languages, especially their hands, because I think when you can tell a lot with people's hand if they're closed off versus if they are nervous or if they are confident and like free flowing. Like your hands and your gestures and your body language tells a lot about it. So that's the one of the first things I observe in a person, and then the eyes. I think if you can make an eye contact and have a conversation, again, that tells a lot of
Mm.
how confident you are and how open you are versus um, if you are distracted or if you are not so confident, if you're trying to be like coy about something. So yeah, that's something I observe a lot in people.
Okay. And finally, describe Canada in one word or a sentence.
Canada in one word. I think it's like a mini world. Um, I say that is because, you can find food, a person, or a place from any ethnicity in this world right
Mm.
here. Like it's a fun fact or like a fun thing I have with my friends, and I love trying new cuisines. So we always have this thing of like whatever we are craving, any cuisine in this world, you would be able to find a restaurant. At least that's how it is in Toronto. I'm not sure if maybe it's different anywhere else, but in Toronto, I can find that and get it delivered to my place that very day, or go there and eat it that very day. It's
Mm.
within the reach. And be it a language class, or it is a dance class, or, a grocery store, like whatever you're trying to find, you will
Hmm.
find it here. So I think this is a mini world because you get exposure to so many people. And there was this amazing stat that came out that about 80% of the people in Canada were not born here. So you're basically meeting the people from the entire world kind of
Exactly. Yeah.
assimilated and condensed in this one place. So it's like a mini world. You get, if you are open enough to ask those questions, or just pick the brains of people, you can just learn about like the whole world by just being here. And that's just how it has been, at least for me. So yeah, that's how I would say Canada is.
I can totally agree to that. It is like living in a mini world in itself where you get exposed to all kinds of cuisines and languages, and that's probably the best part of living in Canada. So I'll just conclude by quoting your words, Ramneet, that while we as international students and immigrant community are very grateful to build a future in Canada, but we also are one of the hardest working community. We work hard to build ourselves from the ground up in a new country, speaking a new language and navigating a new job market. So make sure you respect them as they are playing a major role in the growth of this country. So, on that note, Ramneet, thank you so much for being on the podcast and thank you for sharing your thoughts and adding value to my listeners.
Thank you so much, Gracis, for having me on this podcast or just sharing this journey too. I think I have immense respect for anybody who's, takes on a creative outlet outside of your job, because that in itself is so demanding. So if you're going to take out time and dedicate it to something, anything, I find it so like it's worth an applause, and it's um worth so much praise. And I also just you being able to you were sharing your story last time, or how the thick accent came off, and just to be able to
Yeah.
even talk about accents and things that are uncomfortable or things that don't go right with you. I think that takes so much courage, and the fact that you did that, I think it's worth so much appreciation. And the amount of research you've done before you got me on, or before you record this episode, is it's very valuable. So I want to say a big congratulations and a big thank you for you to creating this space for people like us to come on here and just share our journeys, and for putting in this much hard work into making this the right way and doing it the right way. And I think that's very valuable, and I see this going so far. And I know like the sky is the limit, as they say. I have no doubts on how amazing this podcast is going to be. And I'm sure it's going to open up a lot more doors for you and a lot more avenues for you. So big congratulations for getting started, for getting it out there and doing it right. And I think you deserve all the applause for this as well. And thank you for having me today. I had a really great conversation, and I hope it turns out the way I have, at least in my head. I think it went really great. So thank you for having me, and thank you to everyone who took the time to listen to it today.
Thank you so much, Ramneet, for all your kind words. It really means a lot. I hope our listeners have equally enjoyed listening to the nuggets you have shared from your immigrant journey. And if you guys did, I would love to hear from you. I will really, really appreciate that. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn or Instagram. The links to my contact can be found in the show notes. Thank you. Hey listener, thank you for making it to the end. I highly, highly appreciate you listening the podcast. Subscribe to the podcast if you haven't as yet, and please share with your friends or anybody you think would like it. And like I always say, we encourage you to follow your heart, but also us on Instagram. The handle is mythicaccent. You can also leave us a review or write to us at hello@mythicaccent.com. So stay tuned and let's continue knowing each other beneath the accent.